Hello, everyone, and welcome to another
go.
episode of the Richard Lewis Show. It's the third time he's done that to me in the intro. Today, a guest that I'm sure needs no introduction. He is a famous esports commentator in Counter-Strike, considered to be the greatest to ever do it. We'll talk a little bit about that. It is, of course, Sadokist, live from Canada, but nearly not. Had some interesting travel times at the moment.
Yeah, but good old the world we live in, and being told you can't return home and you got to wait and then you can fly home and then you got to have all this paperwork and all that good stuff. Passports this year, COVID this year, whatever.
No, right? It's fucking. It's like I was just saying. I feel like every time you leave the safety of your own home, like everything just goes horribly wrong. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So look, let's start because I'm a believer in serendipity. Anders calls it the simulation. Other people call it God's plan. What I believe now is what I've come to believe is that we are all algorithms doing machine learning for a computer. That's what we are, right? But that's what happens when you do DMT.
So we're basically creating the quantum.
Yes, exactly. It's already happened, and our sentience is an expression of that. So anyway,
got it.
With that in mind, incredible that we sit down to talk to each other today. And obviously the major's been announced, and it's PGL again, deja vu. And so I thought a good jumping off point would be kind of talking about the last major, because obviously you didn't make it to the stadium. You were the domino that set off a chain reaction of just horrible events.
I liked what Semler said to me when he saw me at Blast, because as they're doing interviews and he walked up and he's like, leave it to Sadokist to not even be at the major and still fuck it up for everybody.
Yeah, crazy. So look, obviously, for those that don't know the story, you were you got caught kind of with some like bureaucratic bullshit as it pertains to German passport law. You weren't able to get your connecting flight, and so obviously didn't make it to the stadium. So I'm guessing devastated because obviously I know you've been looking so forward to getting back in front of the crowd.
Yeah, I was. And like, I think Jason and I came into this major not putting pressure on myself as you do when you're casting as frequently as we were. And Henry and I were thinking like, okay, it's a major. We have to go to another level. We've got to rise to the occasion, and you're worn out. This time I came in pretty fresh, haven't done much lately, not Counter-Strike at least. And I thought like me and Jason are finally going to be a little duo, which was something that was planned way back in like 2014, 2015. Mm-hmm. And I was just having fun. Like, I know there was people saying like, oh, I don't get the hype. He's goofing off in the games. Yeah, totally. Like, I just wanted to interact with the fans again and mess around with Twitch chat a bit. And I thought when we get to the arena, we'll rein it in, because I've always been better with the crowd. I kind of thrive off it. It's just like an adrenaline thing. There's more atmosphere that you can let kind of be a part of the show instead of having dead air type of thing. And you can let the crowd kind of breathe. And then I didn't get there, and I was really looking forward to it because like I was burnt out at like the end of my main run of events back in like 2019, early 2020, when I kind of stepped away and COVID kind of hit. But I was like, this is going to be fun. Like, I'm going to enjoy it. Like I'm no longer taking it for granted. And I thought I was really going to have like this like romantic moment where it was like, yes, we're back. And I didn't get that. It sucked. And it was, like you said, it was such a bureaucratic. So it's the Schengen agreement. And if you have to have 90 days left on your passport, because you're allowed to stay in there for 90 days as a Canadian. Mm-hmm. But obviously they don't want you to be there for the 90 days and have your passport expire, because then it's a whole other problem in getting home, and then they have to deal with it. And that's fair. First off, I've definitely been let in before under 90 days on my old passport, because I remember that happening. So it really depends on who you get and how kind they're feeling. Because I had a proof of a return flight like 4 days later. And it was fucked up because I went to Romania with like exactly 91 days left on my passport. Yeah. And because it's Romania, it's outside of Schengen. So they didn't say anything. And if we stayed in Romania the whole time, it would have been fine. Or if we'd gone to Sweden straight away, I would have been fine. But we go to Romania, community has a hissy fit, which is fair, because like I think it was better that we should have been in the arena. Because they rebooked travel. PGL's already checked our documents once. I haven't traveled a lot because of COVID. So it's like I knew the exact expiry date off the top of my head. It was January 17th, 2021. 2022, sorry. I knew it off the top of my head. It's not on my mind. Like, I'm not traveling that enough to really keep track of all that stuff. It's just
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, who the fuck has been the past couple of years?
Exactly. Like if I was still traveling all the time and I'm looking at my passport all the time, I'm going to be aware of that. But and then because PGL already checks our documents and then they have to like last minute book everyone to Sweden, they're not double checking everyone's documents. They've already done that. They're just going, fuck, we got to get plane tickets. We got to get all our production gear. Like they're just trying to get the job done. So it was just like no one was going to notice that. Like no one was going to notice it. And the weird thing was I was booking work for BMW while I was in Romania, and they said like, oh, we don't want to buy you a ticket because your passport's going to expire. And I was like, that's never been a problem. And like 4 days later, I was like, oh, fuck, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but in terms of kind of the what it does to the mentality, because I know how much you were like looking forward to that particular part. Because I mean, I feel for a lot of us, it was almost like the send-off kind of gig. That's how I feel about it anyway. It was a chance for
Damn it, Richard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, so I'm not trying to obviously make it worse than it was, but I think it's like a great tragedy that we were sort of denied.
Yeah, look, I get what you're saying, because I think it was the send off for that group as a core. Like I think there will be some of us that will continue. Anders is going to continue to do work. I hope to be doing more this year. It's just a matter of figuring out what we can get into that, because that's a whole conversation. But I get what you mean, and it did suck to kind of I wanted to have that reunion with everyone too. So it was pretty shitty. I did try, because I jokingly sent it to you in the group chat. Obviously what was unfolded, and you can go into that if you want to. I was trying to be like the group cheerleader from home because I could tell everyone was just falling apart. So I was like, come on, guys, you got this today. Like sitting at home in my bed on my phone.
It was like, I mean, everything about that major. Like, again, I put all my stuff out there. I was very confident that I was going to leave it all out in, on the field to play, so to speak. So I didn't give a fuck when I got back. Like, I was just going to tell it sort of like it was from my perspective. And it was like, in terms of events that I've done behind the scenes, like it's probably the second hardest of all time in terms of like having what we all had to deal with and cope with. And
I think I would agree.
You had the good part.
Right. Well, it's so the thing is, and it's because I changed my mentality. I was just going to go with it no matter what. But I think if I was still in if it was back in my stressed out, caring too much about things days, maybe I would have been a little more pissed off about things too, because of the way things are going. But I was like, people were complaining and I was just taking the approach like, look, I'm just happy to be here. Let's just get through it. Right. And it was, I think, and that's maybe a good change of mentality for me in some ways, because there was times when I was like getting too pissed off about stuff, and then it just creates toxicity, and it's like, why? But yes, I think I do agree that it was definitely one of the more challenging events technically for all of us.
I mean, so let's talk a little bit as well about just that mentality, because my opinion on you, which I know has always been that you are like the archetypal sort of complicated genius, let's say.
Okay.
No, like for real, because I mean, you're incredibly talented at your craft. And I think sometimes you can like tunnel in on aspects of the craft and that job. And it makes you oblivious to the kind of interpersonal aspect about it historically. You're not a diva, but I think sometimes you are. So
there's moments.
Yeah, well, maybe, never to me.
I think we all have our moments,
though. But for sure. But I also think that like comes out of like any group of creatives. If you put a bunch of musicians in a room and tell them to do a jam session, give it 4 hours, and it's going to be derailed. Something's going to happen,
Yeah.
But I will say you definitely seem to have a much more laissez-faire approach to everything. You seem to be in a real good positive headspace. So I wanted to talk about that. Was it because you'd been away from CS for like so long, and I know it's the game you love. I know you want to be back doing these events on the regular. So
yep,
yeah. So talk me through the difference.
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into like the past, like we can talk about specific things or whatever questions you have, but like I don't want to like. It's a long, complicated, and I don't want to drag on. But yeah, I think when I started, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. How cool is it? We're doing this just like everyone. And then you kind of get to the top and you realize, holy fuck, the politics and like the Cluj incident for me, which was the whole like, oh, well, you remember it, you were there, the asking to switch games and then pissing people off because of that, even though it was, today, maybe at the last major, I wouldn't have, because we're all trying to get back into it. But like during the busy times, like we would have been like, yeah, whatever, switch games. I don't care. We're all casting every week. Like, so it was a kind of just the situation. CS was blowing up. And it just, all of a sudden it turned me off and it was like all politics. And then it was like, I felt like I had to watch out, like everything that was going on, I had to be aware of, because it was like, you know, people are trying to negotiate certain things and who do I trust? And it just, whether or not it was a fair attitude, I just started to get more and more worn down by it. And then we're on the road so much that, you know, we're going event to event, and sure, we're paid well, and sure, it's like a dream job in a lot of ways, and we're involved in something very cool, like Counter-Strike and the arenas. It's such a cool atmosphere, but you still don't have a life. Like,
yeah,
I like to do stuff, and like you don't see your friends. Someone has a baby, so and so, like you fall out of touch with them. Even if you try to keep in touch, like you don't see them enough, so you fall out of touch with a lot of friends and a lot of people at home, and you're not really gaining close relationships with people on the road because it's fleeting. Like you're in. You know, you meet someone in Poland and it's like, oh, cool, great. Yeah, I'm here twice a year. See you whenever, right? Like, or whatever. Like, same with Cologne when we were there a lot. I went and played Ultimate Frisbee, met a bunch of dudes that were cool, a bunch of people that I thought I could hang out with, go to bars with, whatever, have a normal friendship. Now you don't see them again. Like, and sure, you can be friends with the people you work with, but you're also working with them in a competitive space. And I didn't necessarily always see eye to eye. Which is where I was kind of the black sheep in a lot of ways, and that didn't help. And then at the end of it, I was saying to some people, it was like being a monkey in the zoo. Like you're in your cage, the hotel room, you just wait. They let you out, you go do your act, and then fuck off back to your hotel room. Like, here's your banana, thanks, monkey, go away, or whatever, right? And it was like, that's how I started to feel at the end. And I was like, man, like this is so, like, I don't know, like like, I'm just not happy. Like I was just not happy at all. And the other thing too, is I think, and like Henry and I had spent so much time together that we were starting to trip over each other. Henry very much like, he's like, he always wanted to be the front man of a band. Right. And at the start, it was like me getting all the attention because I was doing the play-by-play. So naturally all the highlight clips are that. And he was brilliant at his job and a brilliant commentator and learned to do play-by-play because we decided like, you need to, but like at first he was like kind of taken aback by my jokes and had like this quiet opposite to me. And then he got sick of my jokes. And like, it was just too much of each other. And it got to the point too, where I'd rant to him about things, but he was closer with the other guys. And I think like I was just being cathartic to him, but then he would take it seriously and then go to the other guys and be like, man, that's super fucking pissed. And then it would cause like them to be like, more at odds with me. And it's like,
the one thing, you know, I always try and explain to people, and that is sometimes people just need to vent. And once it's out, it's out. Just let them say it. Let them say the shocking thing. Let them shout. Let them rant, rave, scream. And once it's out of you. And that's all they need. And that's how you can be a good friend,
me.
You know?
Like, that's me. Yeah. Like, there's a video when I crashed my race car when I was filming Let's Go Grassroots. And even like like other racers and stuff are like, holy fuck, dude, why did you react that way? Like, you're going to crash a car. And it's like, yeah, but I reacted that way. And then the rest of the day, like the tow truck driver that came and got the car off the wall, the marshals, I was super friendly. I was all good. I worked with everyone to make sure we got, car off the track safely, all that stuff, because I got it out of the system. And that's the way I've always been. And sometimes it's not good. It's very impetuous. But no, it took me a while to realize, like, because I was like, why is everyone like suddenly opposed to me? And I think it was because Henry, and I'm not blaming him for this, but like maybe I had more confidence in me being cathartic and he was kind of like actually taking it seriously. And then it was causing gossip, if you will. Like, yeah. And I think Sam said it best. Like, he just said what you said. I was at a Formula One esports event there with Red Bull just because they invited me over to hang out with the team, and because I know a lot of those guys. And Sam was there, your producer. And,
he does all that racing stuff too now.
Yeah. So he came up to me and we were just talking, and he's like, man, you're not doing as much CS, yada, yada. And I kind of explained some of this stuff. And he's like, honestly, Matt, like, everyone should know this by now. You're the kind of guy that you blow up, you snap, you yell and scream, and then it's over. And that's it. You're out. Like, the next day, it's back to regular Matt. Like, is when you have your moment, and that's it. And I was like, that's impressive that you know that, considering you don't work that closely with us. But yeah, and then
the schedule as well, though. I mean, I don't think people have a conception of just how ridiculous it was at the height of CS, because for a fan, there's downtime between the events because they're every weekend. but to the people
Not for
working the
us.
events, yeah, that's just another travel day. Or if it's like you're doing a league, that's a content day where you go and film some other shit. Or, you know, maybe, God forbid, it's a research day if you get a chance to do that stuff. So people were on the road for fucking, like, I don't know, 280 days out of a year.
And like, and not even getting business class flights for an event that's in Sydney, Australia, when we have to fly back 2 days travel back to Germany, get out of the plane and go straight to the studio for another ESL show.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
And like Chad and I, the interview is coming out soon with Dick Serdo, that we talked about this. Like, we literally slept. It was the old ESL offices. We got off the plane, went and slept on the bleachers for 20 minutes and had to go live.
It's fucking
like,
crazy, dude.
No, like, I'm sorry, like, business class, it's your show. It's for your benefit. Like, let us sleep on the plane as best as possible. Like, you'd think that you want your own products to work. And instead they were just like, no, you're expected to. Like, that's the thing in Counter-Strike. Like, now that I'm working other events like BMW and Porsche and stuff, they're hiring you as someone respected as talent. Like, they're not looking at a talent pool of like a community favors like Counter-Strike does. And like, oh, these are the people. They're just looking at literally like, I'm like, those jobs could be people from BBC hired. They could be people from Sky TV hired. They just go to me because I know esports and cars and they like me, and it's great. Awesome. But like, because of that, they know they're hiring a professional and they treat you as such so that you can deliver the best show. So if I'm saying, like, I had surgery on my arm the day before I flew to Hockenheim to work with Porsche, and I was like, listen, guys, I had surgery yesterday. I don't want to sit in economy in case someone walks by my arm and hits it while I'm sleeping, and all of a sudden I'm in excruciating pain or something. Like, I'm going to upgrade to business. And they were like, done. Don't worry about it. We'll pay for it. Absolutely. Like, and like, sweet. And like, the thing is, in Counter-Strike, it's almost like, no, you should be thankful you're being hired for these jobs. Like, there's other people that want these jobs. Like, you'll do this. And it's like, fuck me.
Yeah. And it's, again, for people that don't understand, it's like, because I know when people hear the word, like in esports, especially whenever they hear things like, oh, a business class flight for, you know, a 24-hour flight or whatever it is, that'd be nice. And then people go, oh yeah, well, you know, well, why should the TO have to have that expense? The problem you've got is that bar one or two tournament organizers, it's like you say, the talent is the afterthought. They go as cheap as they can, as often as they can. They pit talent actively against each other to create this weird, fucked up world where it's like, if you try and take a stand and say, I need a business class flight, it's not a want, I need it. Like when Anders had his knee all banged up and couldn't even straighten his leg, right? It's like they then will just go, well, okay, what are you going to do? Not work the event? And you go, and they just go and get somebody else. And now you might never work with that TO ever again over that stand, you know? So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's very cutthroat in what is ostensibly a partnership, right?
Yeah, no, and it's like, it's opened my eyes. Like, these productions are getting way less audience, but they are an entity that's hiring a talent to do a job, and they'll do anything they can to make sure that job is done satisfactory. And if there's something you need, they're happy to oblige, you know. And I don't make too many demands, I don't think, but like occasionally, yeah. Like, for example, when my arm was literally a day out of surgery and the doctor's like, you shouldn't even be flying, I was like, can I get business class so I can sleep? You know, or like even like blood clots are the issue with after surgery, right? Like, so in business class, you have more personal, like the stewardesses come to you and like introduce themselves. And like, so I said on the flight, I was like, hey, can you wake me up every 3 hours to make sure, you know, I'm not dead? Like, they're not going to do that in economy. They don't give a shit. Yeah. So I had little stuff. So, but yeah, just to go back, like, to change the attitude, time off certainly helped. It gave me a lot of time to reflect on, you know, am I moving on? What am I going to do? At this point I'm almost 33 now, but you know, I was 30, now 32. Thought about going back to photography, but like editing and stuff, it's just, I don't know. I could, but like, it wouldn't be enjoyable. Do I go back to school? Like, do I change it up? And I couldn't really come up with something that I really wanted to do. And then I started thinking, you know, do I want to do more CS, and what would need to change? And I started realizing, like, yeah, I think I do. This is a career now. Like, I'm in this, you know, I've been in it now for 6 years. Like, I think I deserve to continue doing this. I've worked on the craft long enough. It's not like I just lucked into it. Like at the start, like I've worked very diligently and difficultly to build up my skills. Like, it would be a shame to let it go to waste. So definitely that changed my attitude. The other thing, and I will say this, and I was always the kind of person that I never used it as an excuse, is, you know, I'm ADD. And I always was on my medications, but I didn't realize as an adult, it manifests more anxiety in you, which, and I don't like to get into chemicals because I think that being self-aware, it's your responsibility. So this is not an excuse, but I said this to my doctor and I was like, man, like we've switched pills so many times because, you know, I've been on it since I was like 7 and he knows me. He's known me since I was like 2, that he trusts me to report the side effects if I change pills rather than go get a whole new prescription and whatnot. And I was like, I can't seem to break this little bit of anxiety that's causing me some of the toxicity at events, for example, that, you know, me manifesting angry thoughts and things like this that I should brush off otherwise. And he said, honestly, I'm surprised it's taken you this long to bring this up. And I said, what do you mean? He said, every adult over the age of 25 that's on ADD pills brings this up to me like immediately. He's like, I just thought you were somehow working past it. He's like, honestly, you take this antidepressant with the ADD pills, super common now, and it kills it. And it's actually helped a lot. Like and I don't want to use that as an excuse because it's ultimately, I should have brought it up sooner, obviously. Like I was aware of it, but I was kind of ignoring it and that's my fault. But like, yeah, a little bit of it, like it, and I was always a naysayer too. Like it's, I don't know, maybe it's like an arrogance or pride thing, but it's like, I don't need pills, but like it actually helped. Like doesn't change much. Like I still get angry. I still do whatever, but I don't.
Did you feel depressed when you were on the road? I mean, because, you know,
a bit, yeah, I think yeah, I think so. I don't think I was even aware of it until retrospect, but I was pretty unhappy at times. Like there was a couple times I was like, what's the fucking point? Like, why am I here? What am I doing? There was even times I was like not quite suicidal, but like, you know, you're like, fuck this type of thing, but like not to that level, but like, you're just like, I'd rather be dead than be in this fucking hotel room any longer. Like not seriously suicidal thoughts, but like just not where your mind should be type of thing. Like,
yeah, oh, dude, I mean, like all the time, that's all the time. Like I will have that moment at least once an event where it's like, and it typically comes like, I don't know, like, I'll be frank about it. You know, it's generally when something's blown up on like social media or whatever, you know, like at the last major, we had that thing where just a throwaway comment about, you know, I don't know why Heroic were over celebrating.
Oh, yes.
You know, because they've gone 3-2 instead of 3-0, like they were favored to do. And, you know, that segued the shift from, wow, it's good to have Richard back to Richard should be fired. Yeah, Richard should be fired and killed and everything else. You know, you sit there and you could just ignore it. But I think people are always mega curious about what people say about you, you know?
Well, yeah, 100%. And that's the stuff I used to dwell on too much, as well as like an interaction in the green room where someone's having a bad day and they'd say something and I'd be like, like, fuck that. Like, and I would just dwell on it. And like, it happens all the time. I'm sure everyone's done it. You have these conversations or you play out scenarios in your head that never actually happened. And it just makes it worse.
Yeah.
And it's like, it kind of got rid of some of that stuff, which is like, that was good. That needed to go away. It's like getting rid of some of the cobwebs. And it's like, okay, that happened. Fuck it. I was mad. My bad. Cool. We're done. And just move on. So that was kind of my attitude at this last major too. It's just like, go with it, you know, roll with it. So, which I liked a lot more. Yeah. And also, it was also nice because I wasn't putting pressure on myself to be like, you're expected to be the top duo. You better cast. I was like, I'm just going to cast. I'm just going to do what I do. Like,
well, let's talk about that as well. That weird world, because you know, I had to learn the hard way about this, and obviously, I'd never been like considered a great commentator when I used to do it. When me and Henry did it, we were almost like an afterthought, if you can sort of believe that. We just used to do, we were still doing Dignitas cups for £50 a night. You know, we just did it.
Yeah.
We just, you know, and because we had fun doing it with each other, and you know, people seem to like it, so whatever. But I've never been in a position where it's imperative there's like some pride in it, you know, like so what I've noticed with a lot of commentators is that even the ones that say they don't get fazed by the bullshit and they don't get fazed by the reputational components of it, there is actually a lot of a point of pride in being considered the top duo, and the people who are really, you know, at any given moment, really don't want to be knocked off that perch. And as a result, suddenly your friends that you work an event with, they are competitors. There's no getting away from that aspect to it. And some people get really pissed off. I mean, ostensibly, all the issues we had at this major sort of stem from a commentator's perception about who was good and who wasn't and who should have more time. So so talk me through that and what it's like to negotiate that landscape where your friends are your competitors too.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think there was a lot, and this is again where I was sort of manifesting these thoughts. I think a lot of people assumed that I was more competitive or that we were more competitive, or you assume someone's negotiating finals. I actually, in terms of negotiations, like there was a time I remember a Star Ladder was willing to pay Henry and I the common rate that everyone wanted, which we'll call X, but they weren't going to pay Moses and Anders the same amount. They were going to undercut them just because they weren't the top duo. It was Henry and I. So Henry and Moses and Anders said, well, we want the rate that we normally get, which we'd all were pretty transparent about. And they said, no, we're going to hire this duo. So then Henry and I went back and said, listen, if you hire that duo, that lowers the quality of the whole event, which means now Henry and I have to carry the whole event. So we're going to charge more. So basically I said, like, it's going to equal out either way. You might as well hire them. So there's times when you have each other's back, but yeah, there's also times with some of the more long-term TOs, ESL, now Blast, where you want to be their top person, because typically ESL, if you notice, what they'll do is they'll have a main duo and then a secondary duo that's very serviceable, but they can keep in the corner, and that way they kind of control it, if you will, in a way, like they know who's number one, number two. There's not that much inner competition, and it doesn't give them the problem where they necessarily promote a second duo to be poached from them. I don't know. There's many reasons they could do it. But yeah, I think Harry and Hugo are in that position now where they're definitely good enough, but aren't getting those opportunities, type of thing. Yeah. But there's the thought of, you want to maintain as number one because you've gotten used to it. The community expects it of you. And like you say, the hate you get is very annoying. So you always feel like you have to deliver. Otherwise, it's like you just get absolutely trashed. And the community also has, and I hate to say this because they're going to think they have too much power, although I think we're getting away from it. But there was a time when it was very influential in terms of those decisions, because TOs were scared of feedback and, backlash as well. And they would just do whatever to make the community happy, which is a fucking problem in itself. But they would do that. And then, so if you lost community favor, you were worried like, well, fuck, it's like falling off the cliff on the other side. Like you gradually go up this hill and the hill leads to this beautiful little meadow. And then as soon as you take one step too far off the meadow, you just fall off the fucking cliff and that's it. Yeah. And it's like, as soon as you go over that cliff, you're like, well, that's it. Fuck, now they're number one and I'm on the wrong side of the hill. I can't even climb back up. Like, and it's difficult. And like, there's always that aspect of, I guess when you're number two, like for me, I've always been motivated by being like the underdog, like in sports and stuff, like, I want to beat them. I want to beat them. When you're the best, you feel other pressure because you're like, we're the favorites. We have to deliver. Right. So it's, I don't know. It's just a weird thing. Like
I think, I mean, I think it's kind of like, it's nice to be sort of recognized for your craft, but, unfortunately it does come with a lot of the bullshit. I think, if you can avoid becoming an asshole because of it, because that's another thing that happens, everyone's telling you're number one all the fucking time. And
I was an asshole beforehand, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, so you were already well versed. No, but I mean, obviously as well, I mean, that's something else that is just a really prevalent issue in esports, that you are number one, you are number one, you are number one, you are number one, get all these trappings, all this positive attention for being number one. And then sometimes people, they do turn into fucking assholes and they do turn into divas. That's like pitfall number one you have to avoid, especially given it's a pretty young industry and people don't have life experience. But then the other issue is like, I mean, when you're up there, people are going to throw those metaphorical stones at you. People are going to look to get job opportunities by using what leverage they have. People are going to use social media to their advantage and play games where
that's gotten way worse.
Oh, bro, the pandering, the leveraging of social media to get gigs and to pander and to do. Oh man, it makes me sick because honestly, bro, my thought is just this. Like, I like my community, and obviously, like, anyone who appreciates my work's okay in my book. But when you start pandering to any audience and telling them that, your opinions are right and you should totally like voice them all the time and everybody should be beholden to you, this amorphous mass of numbers on the internet, that gets so fucking dangerous so fucking quick. And eventually the people who are like talking you up into these jobs, that 6 months from now, they're outside your house with fucking flaming torches and pitchforks.
It's also so fucking insecure, and it always is like and insincere as well. Like, it's going to come back and haunt you. Like, if you play that to get an advantage and suddenly the truth of it comes out. Like there's examples we won't get into, but like we've seen people blatantly leverage community.
Yeah.
And also like being hypocritical about it completely. Like when that comes out, you are going to look like such a fucking fool, because it will. Like someday it's going to come to roost. Like it's just like, yeah, just be genuine, like in that sense. That way there's less to have to worry about. Like I can't stand it when I see people. I don't know. There's been a number, some worse than others, but it's like it's so fucking fake.
This will be a difficult question and thing to explore, but it's what's always fascinated me about you as a person as you interface with esports. That for me, and this isn't to be disrespectful to the Anders and the Semlers and the Moseses of the world, right?
Moses,
but I mean, I always thought in CS you were the best to do it. I think your highs are so perfect, succinct. You have a real good understanding of the craft, and so that's always been my opinion, and I make no bones about it. What's also incredible is I know that I know that you can be incredible even as you're phoning it in, and so
that was, I got really good at that, which I hate to admit, but yeah, there was times.
Yeah,
I got a formula figured out pretty well, but yeah.
But I mean, like that's what's crazy about it all. So specifically, what I want to explore is the sort of sentiment of because you are so gifted at the craft, well, and then not wanting to kind of like fully commit to something.
I get what you mean. I think there was also a point. The 50% comment was that I still felt like I hadn't hit my peak. Like, right. I know people attributed and the weird thing is this is where I also got really frustrated with commentary, because I never felt like I hit my peak, because the lines like the Big Apple snacks is hungry, the lines where I was using certain lyrics that were on the top of my mind were so natural that I didn't have to put effort in for some of them. Like, if that makes sense, they were just kind of there, like lyrics that I always thought of anyway. And I kind of used all those up, but I never felt like I really, like, there was some that I had planned out that like needed such stupidly specific scenarios. And I didn't plan lines, but like, I would just like think like, oh, if I could get that in. And I always thought like, man, one of these days I'm going to nail it. I'm going to get like this ridiculous Shakespeare quote in, or like, I've got more lines to use from like Me Without You. I think Aaron Weiss is like an incredible, I think he's poet laureate, but because he's a lyricist in a band, he's not qualified for that. But I think he's a better poet than any poet right now. And I just felt like I have like, if I could, there's other lines that are amazing. And like, eventually I'm going to create this like nemesis environment where it's like, because let's think about it. We're kind of villains in Counter-Strike. It's one versus the other. Like, you are creating that picture. Someone gets to be a hero. Someone gets to be the victim in every round. And you can really create this like dark narrative with it. And that's kind of what I always liked about Counter-Strike, because you can really like create a character from not just the person behind the mouse, but just like in that scenario, in the server, in that moment. It's, someone gets to be a villain or whatever in the round. And you get to use a lot of like I'm not necessarily religious, but my grandfather was a minister. And I think the Bible creates a number of incredible metaphors and just like everything that goes on and analogies in it and just like that kind of stuff. And I felt like I felt like I wasn't getting those out. And I felt like I had more to give. And I was at the point where all the natural stuff was gone and I was like reaching for it and it was getting frustrating. And that was kind of where the 50% sentiment came from, I think, because it was like, I still have more to give. Like, fuck you. And you guys are already saying I'm the best. Fuck off. Like, and like, that may not be true, because a lot of the times, like when I started to try and get some of those lines in, people would be like, man, you're trying way too hard. Probably was at times. But yeah.
Like, so, I mean, like, tormented because you're looking for the perfect call.
Yeah. And it's like in my head, like I have the scenario, like it's again, I didn't like go into a game being like, right, here's a line I'm going to use today. Although I did do that once at Katowice, and I actually thought one of the games was the best game I ever called. But Henry was like, man, put that fucking book away. Like, but yeah, like I felt like the Big Apple snacks was hungry. Maybe I took it for granted because like it was, that round could have gone the other way. He could have died right away. Line's over. It's gone. It was perfect. Like if you go back and listen to it, it played out so well. Like I got so lucky with it. It all built up very well. It was just like they matched each other. The commentary and the round complemented each other. But because it just happened and like I didn't really have to work on it. Like I felt like, oh, well, that was fine, but I can do better, you know? Like, so that's the way I always was. Like I'm a perfectionist, and it's why in photography, I take 8 hours to edit a photo. And for the last 5 hours, it makes no fucking difference to anyone other than me. Right. But so I guess that's where that came from, where I was like, I'm not even at my peak yet, but maybe I was, right. Maybe the natural was better.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I mean, you know, when you look, because I've studied, you know, sports commentary, and obviously been a huge sports fan. But, you know, when you think of all the like iconic historical moments, there's something that happens in the commentator's mind where they're just so caught up in it. It's, you know, it's why sports is amazing, and our ability to sort of like engage with it, right? It's almost like they're speaking in tongues. It's words that are coming out of them when they are deliriously overwhelmed. Like it's just a derangement of the senses. You just get bombarded with the moment. This icon, you know, and so I think it's like, you know, so for example, Harry Carpenter, the boxing commentator.
Okay, not familiar, but yep.
Yeah, if you ever go and it's in the when Ali beats George Foreman, doing the famous rope-a-dope trick.
Oh, okay. I probably have heard his voice.
Yeah, you will have definitely heard it, right? There's a bit. There's the when Ali when Ali wins that fight, Harry Carpenter has just set up that Ali is done. He is tired. He says like he can barely lift his arms up, right? And he really telegraphs that for the audience. And then Ali from nowhere just snakes out this right hand and cleans Foreman's clock. And Harry Carpenter can't believe what he's seen. And he's saying, "Oh my God, he's won the title!" He loses his fucking mind. And it's that's the essence of a great sports call. That insanity. But
that was also funny. Yeah. Like, because we used to do that. Like Henry used to get yelled at all the time online, where he was like, "There's no way they'll win this round. There's no." And what Henry's doing is actually looking at it from a statistic point of view and saying, "There's like this. He should not win this." And then of course pulls out a crazy clutch, and everyone be like, "Oh, Henry's a fucking idiot." Well, no, he's actually just made that clutch more amazing, because now it literally showcases how impossible that is and how that should not have happened. If Henry goes, "Oh, there's a chance he wins this," and then he does, everyone goes, "Yeah, there's a chance he was going to win it." Like, that doesn't do anything for it. You want to make the impossible possible, like by creating that whole narrative, right? Like,
yeah. Again, this is what I mean. People don't understand that sometimes to tell a story, like right, if I pick up a book, right? Okay, I pick up a comic book and it's Captain America, let's say, and you
Captain Canada,
or Captain Canada, right?
Fucking, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, like so. There has to be some peril. If the first line is, "Well, Captain America wins," you know, like, well, what's the fucking point in the story? So what you do is when you're telling a story via commentary, you have to set up the possibility of, you know, you being wrong for the dramatic, tension it creates. Like, it's okay for a commentator to be surprised and shocked.
Yep.
You don't want to sound like a know-it-all. It's actually a little bit off-putting. But, you know, when you put it out there and say, "Oh, yeah, there's no way he can win this," and then it turns out there is indeed a way he can win this, it just takes it to that next level. So, yeah, I mean, I always thought that was the reason you and Henry complemented each other so well. He was sort of the cynical old pro who's seen it all. And then, you know, you, the sort of manic excitement with a very good linguistic flourish. It was the perfect partnership.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of Alex and Chad have that a bit now. In terms of the roles, because at the time, remember, it was Anders and Semler were the other duo, and neither of them were really a clear-cut Keller commentator or a former player. And that's why Moses and I were going to go together. I always was aware, like I had a Counter-Strike background as a fan, but I had no playing experience really other than like a season of Calo with my friends. I was mostly Call of Duty. So I understood Search and Destroy, and I understood some of the mentality, but like, me working with another person like me, we're not really going to get into the layers of the game. So I always knew, like, and even now, if I duo with someone again, if I do go with Jason for the long term, or if, you know, someone else, it needs to be someone who is a former player or an analyst, because that's what makes that made our duo stand out at the time, because that wasn't as common. Like, we know it seems like a no brainer, but like, yeah, I would go crazy. He would break it down. And it was like very good.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame in a way as well. Like, you know, I know obviously Henry's moved on. And I know it's been a bit of a shock for him because
he's, I think he's NFT, no fucking time for casting. Is that it?
Yeah. That's, but I mean, you know, he, the what happened to him in Cloud9, where the community just turned, you know, a classic example of what we're talking about. Everyone loved Henry G, the commentator. Henry tried to do something, you know, he's given his life to the game, given his life to esports, tried to do something different, but with the same flourish and personality, and people deemed it completely inappropriate. And you know, I know that was why he wasn't at the PGL major, because you know we could have run it back and had you both together again.
Oh, dude, like it would have been great. Like there was a lot of stuff that that him and I could have done more as a duo. Like for example, I think if we were both at PGL probably would have given us the finals just because it was the throwback. Not saying we would have deserved it, but would have been interesting to see. Although it turns out I wouldn't have been there anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say
yeah, fucking whatever. Like Berlin, we were told, and like I never liked pre-negotiating finals, but sometimes the TOs would just say it outright. And I was like, well, fuck me, like because Berlin, they also wanted us to commentate the finals, and that was the event that like Chicago was right before that. Into the player break, Henry and I decided like, fuck this, we're not going to commentate together anymore. Like we need a break, whatever the case was. We didn't really even talk about it. We just kind of mutually decided silently that enough's enough. And so like we could have done that final, and like, yeah, we could have run it back this time. And yeah, I mean, I think Henry is a cynic, like you say, and I hope he's doing well, because like I know that he can be really hard on himself and he gets down on things that really are out of his control and beats himself up over it. And I don't know, maybe if enough time went on, I'll just answer this now. I know it's not a question and I'm not saying it could ever happen, but yeah, maybe we could be a duo again and there would be some sick stuff like that to come out of it still. But yeah, I mean, I hope, because I think he was probably in a similar situation to me where it was starting to actually become a real factor mentally, like on his health. Like more than just a commentator, more than as a personality, as an actual human being in your day-to-day life, which is extremely important. I hope he's a lot more content and happy now. So, well, I needed that.
Yeah, well, that's another aspect of what we do as well, right? That we unfortunately, and like I wish it could be as simple as turn up, talk, go home, go to bed, rinse, repeat as much as is wanted. But unfortunately, there's this like swirling maelstrom of machinery, the levers of which we have to pull to maintain relevance, or you don't get to do the job. Yes. And a big part of that is essentially selling yourself as something that doesn't exist, and that is that you are a flawless human being with the complete right opinion about everything at all times. And it's not as simple. People always go, well, why do you just not tweet? You know, for example, they say that to me a lot. And the problem is it's not that simple as not tweeting, not having a Twitter. I have to have that. It's even now an insistence of some TOs that when you're at an event, you tweet about it. When you're at an event, you tweet out their clips, you know? And oh
no, that happens with BMW and Porsche now. Like it is expected that when I'm hired, my socials are part of that deal. Like it's in the contracts. So like
exactly. So you know, the problem you've got is the version of me everybody wants isn't real. And so honestly, it's like having a disorder, you know, because you spend so much time being that other version or trying to be that other version. And whenever you falter, you get absolutely pilloried and pelted. And also, just imagine the world that you live in where you're like a celebrity and you can lose everything based on one of these moments. It all goes.
I came pretty close. Like I get it. Like it's pretty fucked up. I think the social dilemma touches on it. The Netflix documentary / movie, whatever you want to call it. Documentary, I guess. It's kind of fucked up. Like, I don't think this existed quite so badly. I mean, obviously our whole industry didn't exist, but like this whole interaction or aspect of, that's the other thing too. You tweet at someone now, like you don't get a chance to walk up to someone like Elton John or
right.
Pitt. Like you might see them in public and say hi, but you don't get the chance to, you know, speak your mind to them. Whereas on Twitter, like now people are like ripping into you with entitlement. And you like, if you don't respond, they're like, fuck him.
Yeah, they say you're in an ivory tower or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, no, it's not that I'm an asshole and don't want to talk to people, but like, you don't have the right to come at me like that, and I don't have an obligation to answer you in real life. Like, I'm a reciprocal person. If in real life someone says that, like, I'm a Canadian, we don't lock our doors where I live. Like, we literally wave to each other on the streets when we're driving by, and like, you say hi on the sidewalk. All it's, if someone comes to me, like, I'll say, yeah, fine, cool. But if you come up to me on the street and say like, hey, fuck you, you fucking suck, I fucking hated your cast last night, what do you want me to do? I'm just gonna walk away. I'm not gonna talk to you. Like, so why am I entitled on Twitter? And why do you feel like I have to respond to you? Like,
yeah, it's Twitter really did a number on people, man. It really broke everyone's brains. This will sound mega sort of conceited as well, but it's a standard I applied to myself. You know, it's given everyone a sort of collective delusion that that we're all on in some way fundamentally the same, right? Mm-hmm. And yep. I would never dream of like, you know, tweeting at Donald Trump when he was president, like, you know, how dare you, sir? Like, who the fuck am I?
In that case, you're not even talking to him. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, actually, with Donald Trump, you probably were.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
he was mental enough to be on there.
He doom scrolls before bed every night.
Yeah,
sure.
Totally. But you know, and it's like I just see these replies and I'm like, this is it feels mad. It feels mad. Like, you know, back in the day, if you wanted to contact the fucking celebrity, you had to sit down, you had to write a letter. Right, this is how old I am. You had to write a letter.
Dear Stan, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling.
And it had to go to the fan club, and then whoever runs the PO box has to then forward it on if it's appropriate and it's not feces or whatever, you know. So, and that was how it used to work. That was how you contacted celebrities. In other words, you didn't. And now people just, it's just every day, relentless. But like it you wouldn't do it in a bar. So why the fuck do you do it on the internet?
No, but you might like if I saw Brad Pitt. Like, for example, I saw Brie Larson at the LA airport, and like she came out of like a private lounge that LA probably has because there's a lot of celebrities going in and out of there, and she walked straight to her gate with a posse, and I was like, I'm not gonna bother her. She clearly is walking in a way that she doesn't want to be bothered. But if I was in like a bar and Brad Pitt's ordering a drink next to me, I'd be like, oh hey man, like yeah, you might do that, but you're not gonna fucking.
I certainly wouldn't go up to him and say, do you realize that the character of Tyler Durden has been chronically misrepresented and misinterpreted, and you've encouraged an entire new wave of toxic masculinity, you pig? I wouldn't be doing that. But people
should, Richard. I think you have a point.
People do that on social media, and it's just, the thing is why it always triggers me as much as it does, because I can't woo-saw it off. Like some people can, you know, the thing I despise perhaps most of all is over familiarity. It's a real sticking point for me, you know, and this idea that I can just say, like, it's like when people who've just met you will make like a really offensive joke about you, and it's like, bro, we ain't there yet.
Yeah, you don't know me. Yeah,
exactly. We ain't there. Like, so yeah, it's the part of the job I really hate. It's the part of all of this.
It's so difficult. Like it really is. And that's why I say it's a shame that and I don't want to feel like I'm empowering the community with this, because they already think they have too much. And there is some, like, that's the weird thing. There's some very actually mature people in the community, and I've had some great interactions with fans, and, you know,
phenomenal. I read all my messages and all my DMs and all my emails, you know, and my DMs
Instagram,
open.
By the way, did Instagram do the thing to you where it withheld? I got 700 message requests like 2 days ago that were withheld that I never saw. They're like, some of them are like 3 or 4 years old. I don't know if it's
I need to check all my spam email.
I try and read them all too, and like I don't necessarily respond to every person that puts up like just an emoji response to my story or whatever. But like if there's someone that has like a genuine question, I try and respond. I felt bad all of a sudden. I was like, holy fuck, I've been ignoring all these people and didn't even know. Like, Anyway, just wondering if you got that, because mine was screwed. So
yeah, I mean, like whenever I get messages, you know, I do read them, and like probably it's a 70-30 split of 70% hate, 30%, you know, positive stuff. But I read them all, you know, and I try and interact with people, and I'm always very grateful when I get a bit of fan mail. I actually like that. But even though that is a bit over familiar, it's nice. Compliments are nice. But yeah, I don't know what goes through the head of someone that some of these hate messages, they're long, dude. This guy took time. I remember famously, I had one guy who literally sent this email where he said he was going to drown me in a urinal. And it was a vivid description of what like the piss would do to my lungs.
Good creative writing? Like,
I mean, it was just psychopathic. Like, it was just genuinely like
what was the piss gonna do to your lungs? I'm curious.
Oh, I can't even fucking remember. Yeah, he described how like the ammonia content will fucking break down the essential tissue. Oh, it's mad fucking nonsense. Like, I'm just like, why would you ever do this to someone else? Why? Why?
If that ever comes out in a novel, I want to read it.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Let's change of pace. Let's talk about what you're doing right now. And it does seem to be something that synergistically makes sense. Obviously, I know you're a massive racing fan. You aspire to be a racer yourself, and
yes,
you've been,
despite my bank account saying otherwise.
Yeah, expensive hobby, I imagine.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you've been out there doing a lot of this, like iRacing stuff and doing commentary and doing content around it. And as you've already alluded to, seems to be a very different world to esports, arguably one where the talent is valued in some way.
It still is esports, but yeah, it's just you're dealing with people like in my case.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I should include it under the umbrella of esports.
No, it is.
It's because it's so alien to me.
100%, and it is the closest counterpart to its real life. It's even more so. FIFA, you're playing with a controller. It doesn't mean you can run outside. These guys that drive in sim at a high level are usually reasonably quick, sometimes very quick in a real car as well. And vice versa. A lot of the pro real drivers are very good in sim and compete and stuff.
Yeah.
As was the case, Matty Campbell just won the Daytona 24-hour he wasn't in the car at the end, but a spectacular finish between the two Porsches. And he was a week prior to that was hanging out in Gronau, Germany with me and the Porsche guys doing sim stuff. So like they do both and they do cross over quite well. I don't know. It seems kind of natural, right? Like I grew up karting. My dad's a car guy. My brother and I both raced karts forever. Got into car racing. There's lots of stuff on it, but rode off a car at 17. Budget was shot. That was it. Sim racing held me over. And like, I was always into sim and I always thought like there's huge value in this. And like, it was getting better and better and better. And then, and then obviously I got into esports with Counter-Strike and commentary and all that. And it's like a natural fit. So these guys now are trying to develop the scene. And like you say, it's more professional because a lot of the people that are organizing these esports events come from the real world of racing where you're dealing with networks like BBC or Sky Sports or whatever, or you're dealing, in my case, doing content for companies as well as commentary on league. I do a bit of both, but I've been doing a lot of BMW sim content and Porsche Motorsports sim content, and you're dealing with BMW and Porsche, and you're dealing with people that are, big marketing teams, big budgets that are putting into this, not necessarily saying I'm getting paid more than I was in Counter-Strike. It doesn't necessarily go to me, but the point is they're putting effort into this. They're going to treat you that way. And they are used to that professional standard. So it's not, oh, look at us. We grew up, we're esports. Look how big we are now. Wow. And some people kind of outgrew themselves in their roles. It's these guys are coming in and they're used to dealing with, and expecting the best of the best. And that's how they approach the whole thing, which is, it's kind of cool. Like it's more of a TV approach. It sometimes feels too structured. Like, I've got, here's your moderation guide. We do a rehearsal and I'm like, okay, this is all suggestive, whatever. And then they're like, no, you need to be hitting the timings perfectly. And I'm like, but it's a fucking live stream. We're not on TV. I don't have a commercial break I got to hit. And they're like, no, you still have to hit it. Like we expect it. Like, okay. So like, it's different, but it's cool. It's fun. And it's kind of a natural fit between the real racing, the sim racing, the esports. It's all kind of blended together.
Well, I mean, how are you finding it as a fit for your style? Because, I'll be frank, it's not something I watch a lot of. But the one thing that always strikes me about, when I listen to the commentary is that there's a lot of space because, essentially you are watching cars, the hype moments happen sporadically, essentially, whereas comparatively in an esport,
Counter-Strike, you have every minute and 45 seconds, you're guaranteed something, right?
Exactly.
Like,
so,
occasionally get an anti-eco or whatever, but
So, I mean, for a guy that's known for those like heights, like,
it's even different than that because when I do commentary, I've been doing it with the, and I'll use the official name as I'm supposed to, the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup on iRacing. When I'm doing commentary for that, I'm actually in the Keller role because of my background with racing. And I had to learn that actually, because the first race I was going off and I like my Paul, who's a great commentator in his own right. I was like, fuck, I left this guy no space. Like I didn't mean to. And we eventually found a balance. And like, there's times I can still hype things, but I hype the more technical thing. Like, you know, oh, he locked a brake here, which means like in 2 laps, his tires are like, you know, he's going to have less tire life. Like I get into the nuanced stuff and he hypes the other stuff. And, but I've actually also found myself weirdly, because in Counter-Strike and in esports, we've always been very fortunate to have more camera time than a lot of sports commentators. I have more camera presence. I found myself doing a lot of hosting. Like Porsche uses me aside from the regular season for PESC. I host the final show. I just did Porsche's direct motorsport show for Virtual Le Mans. And for BMW, they're not even using me in commentary at all in their races. I do a pre-show that's 30 minutes. And then I do BMW Sim Live. Hopefully I did it last year. Hopefully I'll do it again this year. And they're using me more in studio as a host, which is funny because in Counter-Strike, there was a chance that I was going to be the host when you famously wanted to be a WWE wrestler and I was going to step in for you.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it's funny because like people have always said I would be, but I think in Counter-Strike, and I think I could in racing. So to answer your question from like a commentary point of view, I would have to relearn tempos and timing. Like when I listen to racing commentators, I can pick out their flaws technically or find ways to give them feedback that I think would help them improve. Up to them whether or not they want to listen to it. But I think I'm better at giving feedback than doing it myself. I think I would have to learn the role very well and refine myself into it. You're looking at timing screens. You're not seeing all the action. You're keeping track of a few different things. And like you say, it's not always hype. So you need to find ways to be more conversational and informative than just go. So it's kind of interesting, but the hosting's worked out really well and I enjoy it because I get to talk about cars. I'm dealing with a lot of pro drivers, doing interviews, getting to know them. And it turns out a lot of pro drivers have a following for esports and a lot of them follow Counter-Strike and kind of already knew loosely who I was. And now it's cool because now when I'm watching real racing, just as a hobbyist, like Daytona, I knew like 10 of the drivers and I'm like literally Instagram messaging them when their stint was done. Like Robbie Foley, who races for Turner Motorsports, the BMW was the first official race for the M4 GT3. And I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but they had a balance of performance issue because in GT3 racing, they try and keep all the cars competitively close by limiting horsepower or turbo or adding weight or whatever they deem it to be the strong point. They try and neutralize it so it's competitive. And the BMW was screwed. Like they got screwed on balance of performance this time. So I was just talking to Robbie like mid stint and like, this is a pro driver that's at a race that formerly, like, I don't get this insight. And he's just messaging me back. Cause like, we just talk like it's cool. And like Matty Campbell was, you know, in the winning car. And I messaged him after like, congratulations. And he was like, you know, messaging me back for Kano, like, holy fuck, buddy. I can't believe like, you know, I never used to talk to you. It's just cool. Cause now it's like, I've been a fan of this my whole life. And now if something happens in the race that I'm like, I don't understand that, or like we didn't see on camera, I just message someone and I get an answer. It's kind of a cool experience for me.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm watching it from afar and it's sort of, it's kind of weird because it's like you said, right? I think it should have a bigger audience essentially because the overlap with iRacing and real racing. Right, like there's nothing like Counter-Strike. I mean, apart from real cops and robbers shoot bang bang, which obviously is awful, right? Whereas,
well, yeah, no, 100%. And like during COVID, sorry, I didn't mean to totally cut you off there, but during COVID, obviously, a lot of the real drivers took to sim and gave it a huge boost because there wasn't real racing, and all the organizations went, well, shit, we've got to do something to make content. We've got to get out. And we had these all-star series, which I was hosting with the race, and like Fernando Alonso, who's like my longtime idol. Like I've got his hat over there that he autographed when I met him, fortunately through esports again. Like he was racing in it, and I'm literally like sitting chatting with him in a Zoom call just like this before the race. Like I never would have had that. Like this is a guy that I used to idolize as a kid. Like it's kind of crazy. But you're right. Like you'd think that and BMW, like we did BMW Sim Live, one of the most well-run, organized productions I've been on. It was me and another pro driver, massive production, really well done, full race cars in studio, in BMW Welts, in their like their buildings designed like a hurricane. It's in like the Eye building. I forget what they call it in German, but it's like the Eye of the Storm. So it's like their center hub for all their media. Brilliant show, like lighting, everything's great. And I had like 2,500 viewers on Twitch. It's like, man, this deserves like 100,000, 20,000 respectable could do it. And like there's a couple of problems. One is like iRacing had 18,000 people racing the Daytona 24 hours, like in different splits. But a lot of them just want to race. They don't appreciate watching. And it's also in sim, like you've got a set of Corsa Competizione, you've got iRacing, you've got R Factor 2, and then within that, you've got GT racing, Formula racing, oval racing. It's very spread out. It's already niche, and then they're spreading it out even more. And a lot of these companies, esports is very secondary still. Like iRacing's putting a lot more effort into it, but they still care at the end of the day about who's paying for memberships and selling to their consumers, as opposed to like esports is not their revenue source, right? It's a bit of marketing for them, and they enjoy doing it because it brings in some of the big names, but it's not their priorities. So and then on top of that, you've got guys like Porsche. Porsche Motorsport does tweet out their esports stuff on their direct account, which has 1.7 million followers, I think. But BMW has like 2.1 million followers on BMW's main Twitter, and they won't post esports on it.
Right.
They're like, oh, we have channels for that. And it's like, yo, you have a huge following. Like, leverage the shit out of this. Your company is investing into it. You're like developing steering wheels. Like, I've got wheels behind me developed by BMW directly that go on my sim. Like, you've got a new sim coming out yourself that you've developed for consumer level. Like, you've got your pro drivers. Like, why aren't you leveraging it? It's still your brand. Like, why are you cutting off your nose to spite your face? Like, so it's a bit of that kind of stuff that, unfortunately, the viewership should be way higher, in my opinion. And the racing in sim is actually better than real life sometimes. Like, it's fucking awesome, some of the racing.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, when I was like researching a bit more about it, I saw like there was like, I mean, what I was watching, there was even one clip where the graphics were so good. I was like, what is that?
Dude, I see screenshots all the time on Twitter now, and I have to zoom in myself and be like,
I was like, wait, really? Yeah, it was like, so, I mean, and the setup these guys are sitting in with the cages and the wheels and everything. Like,
I've got my triples there, and like, this is a Fanatec setup with like that's base. That this is like a very good home setup, but it's base compared to the pros. Like, it looks similar, but their gear is just on another level. It's crazy.
I mean, do you feel that as because esports is still growing, obviously. I mean, people seem to think we're there. We're just at the tip of sort of having become mainstream. So where we go from here, we will continue to expand for sure. But I mean, do you feel that, iRacing is something that could be like more embraced generally? Like you need like a big influencer to get on that shit. Like,
they have their own influencers within their own right. Like, obviously the real drivers that come in influence.
But I'm thinking more like Tim the Tapman or something,
Well, so this is something that has been talked about, because Jimmy Broadbent's already huge in his own right, but Summit got into it because he was seeing more and more of it. And obviously Lando Norris was big involved with it. Now, Lando was someone that I was really close with, played a lot of games with, and got to know. And in the last year, he had a phenomenal season, but there's been some change at management at McLaren. And I think they've kind of put the ropes on him a bit, because I don't talk to him nearly as much. He hasn't been playing iRacing. He hasn't been streaming. So I think he's been lost to the professionalism for a bit, which I still love the guy, but understandable. But Summit started playing it, and Coanda reached out to him, which is one of the top sim teams, the team that works with Porsche that I was just working with. And they were like, yo, why don't we get Josh Rogers in, and we'll send you a kit, which their kit is like the best of the best. And it's like a good $7,000 kit plus. And like, we'll get Josh in the server and teach you, because this guy's like one of the three fastest, arguably the fastest sim driver in the world right now. And like, that would be huge for sim racing, because then it's not just Summit going around and making mistakes, and like the people who know how to drive are going, haha, what an idiot. And the people are going, wow, this is so cool. It's actually showing like, yo, this is really technical. Like, they're changing tire pressures and setup, and it just helps give that legitimacy. And like, it's just, like Summit unfortunately didn't answer his DM. So I'm going to hit him up myself, hopefully, because I still talk to him a bit and he loves cars and stuff. But like, you're absolutely right. Something like that would happen to create a crossover in the audience. And they've definitely been looking for that, but they also need a sim, and I'm not allowed to say anything, but there is something coming that is going to be more esports focused.
Cool.
And try and funnel some of the other games top drivers all toward it. And it's been developed, from what I understand, very, very high end. I'm not allowed to say anymore, but that should help too, hopefully.
What about aspirations for you yourself to, be a driver? I mean, it always, because, I always tell you straight, it always seemed to me to be like, I don't know, like, it seems like such a mad, crazy thing for someone to aspire to do. I suppose people have to do it, right?
Exactly.
Race drivers exist, but you're the only person I've ever met who is like older than 6 that is like this enamored with cars and wanting to be a race driver. I mean, you're fully serious into it. So
no, look, I think I'm 32, right? I mean, all the young guys coming up now that are getting signed in and stuff, they're all 20, and you come out of karting, you get a chance. I was quick in karts, but like in Canada, there's no opportunity and stuff. And I know it's unrealistic. I built my car because I don't know, maybe I had my head in the clouds. So I wasn't planning on building a race car, and everyone was like, "Oh no, you will," and then I fucking did, and everyone called it, and I think it was inevitable. It was in my blood. I watched so much of it. I had a chance to go race again at just a very, very amateur grassroots level, and I took it, and I built something that I could have done an MX-5 and raced MX-5 Cup, and people go, "Yeah, that's cool, he races cars." But I built a car that I thought, like, the M3 is pretty sweet, and people, it was good promotion in its own right, building that car, because it's a cool car. It's pretty quick. It's not super fast, very quick in terms of capability, but not horsepower or straight line. And I knew it would get people talking and create a bit of a buzz. I probably overspent for what I'm doing with it and where I'm racing. And then I don't know, I guess maybe in the back of my mind, I thought, well, maybe I can, with my following, get some sponsorship and do something. But it's such a weird crossover for Counter-Strike related brands. Some have expressed interest. And then I also feel bad. Like, I'm fortunate and privileged enough that, like, I probably should stop spending as much as I have been, but I could afford to do it. Well, who am I to go ask for money? Right. Like, and I always get conflicted with that. And, but it definitely worked building the car to be a self-promotion vessel to say, hey, I'm an esports guy. And by the way, I know what I'm doing. And I'd like to race a pro series or a semi-pro series at some point. Like, I have my rating, my international FIAC, which I qualified for, which means I can race pretty much up to a Le Mans level in GT3s. I'd have to get a rating to do Le Mans, which means I'd have to do X number of races and such, but you don't get that license if you don't know what you're doing, right? Like, you have to qualify for that. And I don't think I'm flawless, and maybe I'd get my ass kicked at a pro level. But I think I could hold my own. And I think that being able to showcase with onboards and things that I kind of knew what I was doing, and I knew esports, helped getting me into some of these roles with iRacing and things, instead of just being like, hey, can I work with you guys? Like, so it has worked in that sense. And I don't know if it's paid itself off financially, but it's definitely paid itself off as an endeavor in that way. And the next thing I like to do as a driver is, look, I'm never probably going to race Le Mans or win Le Mans, certainly not. But I'd like to do some, VLN or NES, the Nürburgring Endurance Series, and like BMW has potentially press cars that you can do and things like that, where you just create content around while racing, and just some cool, like, bucket lists, like do a 24-hour race or something like that. Or maybe I get into a Porsche Cup car at some point, because you can, if you have the licensing and things, you can pay a team for a seat for the weekend, but it's like 20 grand for a weekend and stuff.
This
right?
is what I mean, though. It's such like a crazy thing, because it's like, listen, we could do like a celebrity, football match. We can do celebrity boxing, right? I mean, that's essentially dangerous, but people do it anyway. Racing is so fucking crazy.
It's not as dangerous as you think, though. Like, the safety equipment is,
if you put amateurs, is what I'm saying.
No, you have to get a race license. Like, you're not just going to throw them on a track and say,
and that's what I mean. It's not like something that you can just sort of all rock up and do. That's why I think the iRacing stuff's like super cool, because
that's why Sim wins too, because it's accessible, super accessible and affordable. Like, even to go, I'll just say it, like a race weekend in my car at my local track, which is very cheap entry. Like, we're in the middle of nowhere, and it's as low cost as you could do. In my car, running the tires I run, I still spend $3 to $4 grand a weekend minimum.
That's fucking
right?
wild, dude.
Yeah, I know. Like, and when I go away to Mosport or something, I'm spending 10 to 12, and like, that's nothing. The pro guys, like at Daytona and stuff, those guys will be spending 300 to 500,000 a weekend, right? Like, and to rent a seat in those cars, like as a driver, you need 50K to 100K depending on the team. Like, it's foolish. But it's iRacing's different, because even karting now, like 20K, we used to spend maybe for the entire season when we were on the national team, like, and that was with sponsors and stuff from my brother and I when we were kids. Like, now it's like 100K if you want to be, but that's karting for kids. Like, don't get me wrong, karting's fucking awesome, but like, it's getting ridiculous. Whereas sim, like, sure, my kit's decently expensive. You could buy a $300 Logitech, smack it on this desk right in front of me, and I did this for years, sit in a desk, and now you can drive around the Nürburgring virtually and get that kind of, not the same exact thing, but get the experience. And you can drive that Formula One car you idolized growing up, and like, you can get competitive with it, and you can have a chance to prove yourself. And now actually you're starting to see sim drivers come through that only ever simmed get chances in real cars because of how well they've done. So yeah, it's way more accessible, and it's done a lot for the sport in general, I think. I would like to think.
Yeah, well, you should just go in, do a full season of that. That'd be awesome. Instead of doing it in the real.
To be fair, though, well, the crazy thing is, like, in a real car, like I don't think very many drivers would beat me in my own car because I know it so well. And that's a big thing. Like you have seat time, like I know exactly what my car is going to do in every corner. Even Lando watched my lap once and was like, I don't know if I beat you. And I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure you would. It's fucking Lando Norris, Formula One driver, one of the best in the world. I'm pretty sure you're being humble right now. But like, even he was like, yeah, it's pretty quick. Whereas in sim, I'm nobody. The top guys are like in real life, if you're a 10th off, it's like, wow, I'm a 10th slower. That's a lot. In sim, I'm like 3 to 4 seconds slower than the top guys. It's fucked how fast they are. So
yeah, man, that's a shame. Oh,
yeah, it is. I know
that avenue's closed off. Then, no,
no, it's done. It's done. Yeah.
So look, what people are going to ask now because of the timing of everything is your relationship with CS and whether or not we're going to see you come back, whether or not you're going to be working this major, whether or not you're in talks with other TOs. What a partnership would look like given the current landscape and all of that stuff. So we'll get into that as we're on the downslope of the podcast time-wise. So, I mean, obviously, I know you never said you were done with it or whatever, but you've got a real good thing going with the iRacing stuff. You seem to be busy. You seem to be out there. So I guess the question for many people would be like, why the fuck would you even want to come back to the insanity?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah, I'm busy, but it's very spread out with iRacing. And like from an income perspective, I should still fill my calendar up a little bit more for the safety net of the fact that we don't get guaranteed income when we retire and don't have a pension and all that.
And you're spending $4,000 fucking dollars on tires.
I'm not doing that this year. My brother's going to race with me. Anyway, I say that I probably fucking will. So let's not even say it. But yeah, so I do have a good thing going, and I never said I was stepping away full time because I didn't want to be that guy that's like, bye guys, I'm retiring, and then everyone gets all sad and endearing in a community, and then all of a sudden I come back and it's like, oh, I played the community. I don't want to do that. And I don't ever really necessarily, unless I'm 100% certain, I don't ever want to say that. So no, like I do want to come back a bit. Whether it's I think obviously the best role for me in Counter-Strike is casting. It's what I'm the best at. It's what I have the most experience with and the most serviceable. But even some of the interviews lately I've been doing with the Cerdo, I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
The long form, the Twist one I really liked because I really like Twist and we get along on a personal level. And he was more willing to, I think, to discuss things with me than other people. And we got into some good stuff. And just sitting and doing those long form interviews was kind of cool, a different perspective and content is kind of king. And I think that maybe there's some stuff to do there. Definitely commentary, maybe hosting. Whatever the case is, I'm open to it.
Everyone's got a podcast these days, bro. You should
you
should just do that. You get your own line of Sadokist NFTs. You have a podcast.
Jesus, yep. We'll start Jaden coin instead of Dogecoin.
Yeah, you see, it's that's just the game we're all in, I guess.
No,
I'm glad you've been enjoying the content. I mean, the thing about this podcast for me, what I like about it is that ultimately it's good content for whoever drops by to watch it if it's relevant to their interests. It's also just a good excuse to catch up with people, which is hard enough.
I think that's true. Yeah. No, yeah. And absolutely. Like that was one of the other things I liked about doing interviews now more than maybe when I was full time is I was talking with people that I hadn't talked with in forever. I think you're right there. That is kind of cool. But yeah, in terms of talking with TOs, a little bit with ESL on and off. They had a kind of a public meeting after the merger, where I shouldn't say public, it was private, but open to talent that had worked with them just to fill us in and whatnot. So we were allowed to join at our leisure. And I joined that just to keep up on things and chatted with Joe for a bit. When I was at Blast doing interviews, I chatted with them a little bit. Not that that'll go anywhere or not, but yeah, I keep tabs on things. And the weird one is PGL. I was super close with them and I barely talked to Silvio before the event. And then because he was in Sweden, I didn't talk to him at all at the event. And then the major announced today and I was like, oh, congrats. And then I realized I haven't even talked to this guy since the last major. And he's like, I call him my esports dad. So I feel bad about it, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just going with it. I guess there was always the thought that maybe when things went back to normal, if it was going to be quick, then all of the main talent would come back out. But now it's been long enough that there's other people that have earned their own space as well. And it's a different landscape. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to go back to doing as much as I was.
Yeah.
I like that. I can't. There's no way. I got other things too. Like I do a lot of mountain biking. My brother and I started a nonprofit association here to sanction some trails. We trail build, all volunteer. Good exercise, but it's nice to see people get out and use the trails. Like we have people all the time that we see that are like, oh, they're great. And it's cool to give back to the community that I live in like that too. And I really like biking. It's kind of saved my life during the pandemic in terms of not going stir crazy. And so yeah, like there's things that, there's a balance. Like I'd have to have more balance for sure.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like it's sort of, I think it's kind of hard because it's gone, the scene's gone the way I thought it would, where the value is in the alignment. So, Lawrence and Scrawny are part of Blast. They do the Blast finals. Every Blast broadcast, you'll hear Lawrence and Scrawny. And as a result, they don't do the ESL events because ESL have got their own guys, Harry and Hugo. And there's only really a few floaters that kind of move around. So it's like, it's a difficult.
And there's less and less of those like other organizers.
Yeah.
That were open to all because it's becoming more.
Yeah.
Blast ESL. Like
it's gonna, I mean, shit, man, you've seen what's going on with all these acquisitions at the moment. Basically what everyone wants to create and what this fucking Saudi empire that's sprung up is going to create is essentially the money's going to be in the exclusivity, the value's going to be in the exclusivity. They're going to create like a little content hub where people go and do the content with them, and it goes on like a Netflix style on demand platform, which it's insane ESL doesn't already have one. That's like a no-brainer,
especially with MTG was behind them forever. Like you would have thought that was a no-brainer.
Media company that doesn't fucking want to push media, is the thing. Same. But I mean, it would be a weird time to try and get back into it. Like I can't tell you no lies.
Yeah. No, I absolutely. And I'm aware of that. Like I'm aware, like it's not as open a door as it used to be. And rightfully so. Like I had my time in the sun and I've been away for a while. Like I shouldn't just be able to walk through the door and be like, hey, get the fuck out of my way. I'm back. Like, but yeah, it is a lot more difficult now, I would say for sure. For sure. I've even thought of that and been like, maybe I go do another game. Like, what would I do? And Valorant maybe, but I haven't even played it yet. I've said
you haven't even played it
was
yet.
Announced. Man, since the day it was announced, I've been like, I need to play Valorant. And I just haven't made time to do it. Like, played a lot of Tarkov last year, and otherwise I haven't gamed at all. So,
man, commentary on Tarkov. How would that even
I don't know how you do it. I love Tarkov, though. What a game. It's fucking broken in so many ways, but what a game.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting that you say that because obviously Valorant has kind of been the refuge of the scoundrel, in a lot of ways, right? Like people have been, people
Shazam's a god over there.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, I'm surprised to hear you say you haven't played it yet. I mean, I uninstalled it after I did my review because I don't want the Chinese Communist Party having access to my shit, but that's just me. But I mean, obviously, I think they're still figuring out who's going to do what over there. And who's going to be the top guys over there? And I think there's a lot of I think there's still room. I think they're going through that process,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, CS did too. A lot of people just don't remember, but yeah, there was a lot of talent at the start that are not around now. They just couldn't swim when the water got deep, I guess. So yeah.
So I mean, have you given it any thought? I mean, realistically, because I think obviously like 100%, like I don't think it's quite as extreme as you say. I think you would be an asset to a broadcast. I think you would definitely get regular work in CSGO right now, even if it would be weird whereabouts you would go and who you would work with.
Yeah, and where I'd fit in. But...
Yeah, exactly. But, equally, I mean, with the reputation you've got, proven track record of versatility, the iRacing stuff, big brands, it's not inconceivable that you could go to a Valorant or a Call of Duty.
No, I'm less interested in COD because I miss COD 4 Pro Mod and PC COD when it wasn't ported over. Lack of skill ceiling, gimmicky BS. I still enjoy playing it from time to time with friends, but I don't really care for COD Esports. I hate to say it. I did like Halo at the start, but the aim assist kind of turned me off from playing it. But I don't know. Console esports aren't as exciting. The aim and the movement just isn't as glamorous. It's so limiting and like strafing and pre-aiming and slow. And it's like, it's very skillful, but it doesn't have that flashiness to it that I like commentating on, that explosiveness that PC gaming has. So Valorant would be like the first. Have I given it any serious thought? not to like the level of like nearly committing, but like I've had a few commentators message me and be like, hey man, I'd love to work with you. If you want to come over, I'll teach you the game, whatever. And I just haven't bit, like, just not between the biking stuff and racing. With time, I haven't done it. But, you know, if it came to it that I was sitting here twiddling my thumbs being like, Jesus, I'm running out of money or running out of time, I should do something. Maybe I go do it. But no, for now, I don't know. We'll see. I think Counter-Strike, getting back into it, like you say, if I could do something, I don't want to say leisurely because that sounds rude to the people working hard, but like a less of an intense schedule, and fit it in with what I'm currently doing, then I'd be all for it.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, this will be out a few days after the major announcement. Will be when people are watching this. So, I mean, obviously, if you get approached to do a major again by PGL, I mean, you're going to say yes, right?
Yeah. And I didn't feel bad saying yes for the last one because it was kind of a throwback with the talent. But like, you were going to comment on that. You had a response.
No, I was just going to say, like, I mean, it made, for what they were trying to do, it made total sense. I mean, the reality is they bungled and botched even the conceit of it. And for me, what would have took it over the top would have been if you'd had, like, if you want to go old guard, you've got to completely lean into that. And and they didn't quite. And for me, what's the point in having an old guard event if there's no changing of the guard component within that? And there wasn't, and they bungled that. They put everyone in a terrible position by omitting some names that shouldn't have been omitted. And, it was just, for me, that you definitely weren't the issue and shouldn't have felt bad whatsoever.
No, and especially because it was PGL, right? Like, because that was like, especially if Henry was there, like, it would have been a no-brainer. Like, it would have been even more obvious. Like, come on, this is the people that we basically started the Counter-Strike journey with. They started us as a duo. Yeah, absolutely.
The boys from Bucharest, if you remember.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, famously. Man, I love that city still. But no, if PGL comes to me and makes me an offer, like, I'm probably not going to say no, but I would be like, who am I working with? What's the role? Who else is there? Like, I would be a little more, I think, aware this time going into it and kind of go with it that way. Whereas the last time I was just like, I forget who messaged. I think it was you messaged me and they're like, hey, they want to do this. They want to hire you. I was like, all right, cool. Like, all right, sweet, done. But yeah, so I don't know. Yeah. Like, I have no idea what PGL's thinking, because I think there was a lot of kickback from the community that they maybe were hoping not to get by going old guard, and they thought they could win them over with that sort of nostalgia. Yeah. Then there was the drama at the end where, the James thing and Moses being pushed around and Silviu being caught up in it, and who's he mad at, who is he not. Like, maybe they just say, fuck it, fuck the old guard. Matt and Henry aren't a thing anymore. We don't need Matt. He didn't even make the finals last time. Maybe they just go with all the new people this time. So, it's their tournament. It's their decision. So,
I mean, like, in a way, though, because you've been out of it for a while, I think, doing like regular stuff, you're not oversaturated. You kind of feel fresh because you've had that break. Right?
Yeah. So there was a bit of rust on like some of my breathing and like technical stuff that like, and like my voice was a bit weaker at times, but like in terms of the game, it was still Counter-Strike.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd like to see you there, but I agree. I think like enough's enough with the, like, I feel so sorry for like Harry and Hugo not getting an opportunity to do like a big stadium event. Scrawny and London have just proven they can do a big fucking stadium event. And it's like, just let these guys have it now. I fucking hate that so many generations in esports, like, they just linger. They just fucking, they never know when to say no. And it's just like, bro, you're a crusty old ass man now. Get off camera. Let somebody else go do that shit, or transition into a different role or something.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, for me to go back to commentary full time, I would have to have a very fresh approach with a new duo. Like, even Jason would work because we're both still kind of around. We've been around, but like that or someone totally young, totally new. Or I, like you say, just do other roles and, use that to my advantage and help where I can in commentary. And I'm fine with that too. Like, it's whatever. So.
Well, I mean, you're obviously still early 30s. So, I mean, plenty of time, but it's like, that you can only have so many like old guys, I think, on a broadcast, because it's like, and they're the ones that have the gravitas, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the guys you keep around, because they've just given so much to the sport, to the scene, to the broadcast. They're part of the furniture, essentially. Not everyone gets to like be that. And the vast majority don't. And it just sucks because it's like, I got super lucky. I got to do like, probably all told, like 6 years of really cool hosting, did it on TV, did that. I don't want to deny the next generation of hosts that by sticking around and holding on to it too tight. I got other shit I can go and do. It's fine. You know?
Yeah. And that's the thing. If Henry and I just stayed the course and we were still at the top and whatever, that's the case. Cool. You just keep going. But like for me to expect to go back and be like, move aside, new dicks, like my old dick's swinging in this room again. Like it's not going to work.
Here's a question for
Mine
you.
doesn't really swing, for the record, just kind of flicks around. But
I am sadly familiar with this. So
I say as I crack a beer.
So look, who do you rate right now in CS commentary? I'll put you really on the spot because I know you still listen to the games.
Hugo and Harry,
are
my favorite right now. I think they still are. They've kind of like when Harry especially was newer, he was like, we used to rip on him a lot because he was so young and like eager and almost like he didn't have his own personality. He was just everyone else. You know what I mean? Just like, he was too young and too impressionable and trying too hard. And like, there was times he would like mimic me or mimic Henry and he didn't have his own style. You're laughing. Were you gonna?
No, it's because I just get I get love letters from Harry, he just sends me like all these like positive messages. Like, I was listening to your stream the other day. You're so cool. He's the ultimate wingman. He's brilliant.
It is lovely, but like there was a time when it was almost like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like,
I get it.
You're set.
You're part of the show. You're part
exactly.
Of the show.
Stick your elbows out and fit in. Like but yeah, like I don't know. Like I think they've found this like. Between the Hugo and Harry duo, they found this way to be the awkward, socially they're not the guys that are going to the club and ripping shots and hanging out with the hottest chicks, but they've found a way to be accepted because they're like the hilarious awkward that they've embraced and figured out how to use. And I think that was a big part of their thing. Yeah. And like, you know what I mean? Like they're a different kind of charisma and enjoyable in that way. And I think they found a good flow between the two of them. I think they're actually getting quite good. I think,
their synergy really is really cool. And I had the pleasure of working with them at the North American RMR, and that was where they basically won me over because, it's one thing to sort of passively listen, but it's another thing when you're working a broadcast, because as a host, I listen, very fastidiously to all of the things in case I need to reference it when we come back, like if there's a really cool moment or a really cool call or a funny mistake, whatever it is. So I was listening to it and I was like, oh, holy shit. Yeah, this is like the interplay is actually really sophisticated. This is actually like really legitimate commentary. And after that, I was like, fuck it. These guys, I'm always going to go and bat for these guys. Whereas before, I probably wouldn't have felt so strongly about it.
And there's still times they go down a rabbit hole with a joke where I'm like, okay, this one's not that funny other than to you two, like maybe, but like you still have to admire it because it's just their awkward, quirky humor. And like, I like having personality as part of it. And I think that there's too many people that are too robotic. And they just come off, I don't know, not as genuine or insincere, or they just don't add anything beyond talking. So, and then I do think Scronders and whatever, laundry, Scronders, whatever.
They've become one.
Exactly. Fuck. I think they're good. I do think Scrawny at times comes off a little bit too forced in his delivery. It's just a bit too much at times to do this all the time. Like, chill.
Like with the online era, like me and him talked about that when we did an interview. And basically he said it's like it's almost like a mechanism via which he gets himself into the game, because a lot of these games are like repetitive, low stakes, and
but you've got to do the other way, in my opinion, with that. And this is something Henry and you get accused for it sometimes, but just talk normally, be conversationalist, like lean on each other and be like, yeah, this is kind of interesting, Henry. Like, we haven't seen this setup before. Like, oh, we've seen this slow pace, like. Or maybe just talk about a different fact, like, Dupree last week obviously took some time off, said he didn't really like playing this position, needed to like, you can bring in your narratives there, right? You don't have to always be thinking about the upside, like learn to play that downside and break it up. And this is where I think Alex is really poor at it. He also gets into like a forced pentameter, like a slam poet. And it's like, dude, you need to break that rhythm. It gets really repetitive. Like, I think Alex is a phenomenal host. You can oversell as a host. You can be as like forced in that way as you want, because you're trying to hype things up and really get it down people's throat, get it in their minds. I think he's very good on camera. He's got that charming smile. But I think as a commentator, sometimes he's like trying too hard for it. It's like, man, chill. Like, you're a talented dude. You just need to relax. And when those big moments are there, go nuts on the big moment. But don't be like, oh no, the like game's slow, or like, oh, like I don't know. The other thing Alex does is he gets into like this mild surprise, like pitch in his voice, and like kind of goes quiet and does like, it's like, man, you did that 2 rounds ago. Like, it's almost like everything's, he just gets, it's the same as like you're saying with I was about to say Scronders again, Scrawny. You start to fall into it because you're waiting for something to happen, or you feel like the game hasn't delivered like what you want it to, or whatever. And like, you just, in those moments, you need to just say, fuck it. Like, who cares? Go the other way. Just talk completely normally, so it separates the tone and the pace of the game in your speech. Like, yeah,
like I've had this conversation as well with commentators down the years, where it's like, it's not on you to deliver a great game.
Exactly.
Simple as that. It's not on you. Happens in every sport where a game is fucking dire. Like, I mean, a 0-0 draw in football, not a single shot on target in 90 minutes. And the commentators don't go, well, they might be able to do it. No,
that's the thing, because it comes,
this is trash,
It becomes like, people hear it, they're like, this sounds fake and forced. And when you do that, it takes away from when you're actually doing it for real. Like, you have to learn to use the downtime. And that's, like I say, like, sometimes in Counter-Strike, we have the blessing where we're on Twitch and not on TV. And we are more known personalities than, say, a Jim Houston in hockey, who most people who listen to his voice every night don't even know his name or know what he looks like. I wouldn't if I didn't do commentary and actually made a point of it. But, we can joke around. Henry and I used to say like I said, Harry and Hugo, they have this humor that they bring in for those moments. And sometimes it's like Henry and I used to get tweets all the time, like, shut the fuck up and talk about the game. But sometimes it makes the game, it's a fucking 16-1 game. What do you want me to say? We might as well joke around and meme or whatever, right? Like you say, like, if I try and go epic with my commentary there, it's like, oh wow, now it just sounds like he's doing it for the sake of it every game.
Yeah, we had a moment like that, me, Harry, and Hugo, where it was like there was a meaningless game in the RMR. It was just literally zero stakes. It just did not matter. But both the teams were playing it out. And, neither team could qualify, I don't think. And it was like the last game of the long day. So me and Harry and Hugo just did a fucking podcast over it. And we're talking, and people were going absolutely fucking apeshit in the comments. Like, cast the game, do this. And it's like, no, fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah.
It's like, not everything has to be these like huge bombard. If a tournament format creates that situation, like, fuck. Well,
that. And it's so funny because like you get like Beyond the Summit where it's like literally is just fucking around the whole time. People are like, I love it because it's like the intention. But as soon as like they think it's a game that you're not supposed to do that, it's like you're breaking some law. Like,
I know, dude. Yeah, that was like super weird. And just again, it's like I always just every time I think I'm at ease with kind of like, the community's in a good spot. There's just something that just mega disappoints me, like the attitude or the reaction to something, or usually the overreaction to something. It's like, we are not sports ball. We are something very different. The way we handle our broadcasts are very different. And first and foremost, it's an entertainment product. If you are if you are entertained, that's the biggest hurdle to clear.
Yeah. I always used to say, and it's unfortunately we're getting away from it just as we get bigger and bigger, inevitably, and with all the social aspects of social media. But professionalism comes secondary to personality. It was always like in esports, which was like, you still had to maintain a professional standard, just so to speak, but like you could bring a lot more personality into esports than everything else. And I think that's why people identified with it in the first place. I think that's why F1's come back to like making content and trying to be more of a presence online. And
that documentary really blew the fucking roof off, eh?
Oh, Drive to Survive has been phenomenal for them. Like, but look, it's because it's accessible now. Like the drivers before were like, they do an interview and you'd see like the team. Well, I interviewed Jensen Button once, and it was like, literally, he made a joke about Honda. Thankfully, it was him that did it, and like the PR person was just staring at him as he said it, and I was like, imagine living in that world the whole time. And like, it just gets so closed off, and like esports became this like breath of fresh air where it was like you could go to a broadcast and hear a guy make a joke or fuck around and just be a bro. Like that was one of the reasons I liked esports to begin with. It was, it was super good people at the game, and like it was incredibly competitive, and I loved all that. But like you'd also listen to a broadcast and you'd be like, it's just a dude like me that loves video games too. Like, and that was cool. Like I really liked that.
Yeah, I mean, we go through phases. I think like back at the start, I was one of the guys saying like, why have you got a fucking tuxedo on? Like that's not who we are, and that I know that's not who we are, and that's not who our audience is either. And the closer and closer we get to that mainstream acceptance, I always look and I see us both like sliding towards that. Like I used to say it all the time, and ironically, like at E-League, I'm like, why am I in a shirt and tie? Like this is silly.
And that's also one of the reasons why in like studio games, or I guess now in the online era and stuff, like people always say don't do it. I interact with Twitch chat. Like the way I see those games, like in when I'm commentating, one of the things I think of is like, we're all just hanging out. You guys are hanging out at home. You want to watch some esports. I'm just the guy that's talking about it. I'm just there to be, I'm just with you guys too. I'm just watching the game. Like we're just all a bunch of gamers. We're all loving it. And that's like, that was very much an approach I took. And even in some of the arena games do that, but then when you do get into like a major or like a Katowice final or Cologne final or a New York, and you're in the arena and suddenly the stakes are higher, then that's when I go, okay, now we're all here. Now we're passionate behind the team. Now the stakes are high. The money is on the line. This is when you rein it in. And like, there was that too. Like this made like Henry used to hate it, but I would have my phone up all the time, like looking at Twitter and Twitch chat, and partly because I'm ADD and my mind just needs to be stimulated the whole time. But also because it was like, we were hanging out. So like Twitch chat gets into like one of those spammy memes, and it's like kind of funny. I'll be like, I'm going to say that in the broadcast. And then they're like, oh, ha, he's listening to us. And it's like, we're all in the room together. Like I have no issue with that. Like, it's a community thing too, in a way.
Yeah. So look, to wrap it up, what are we going to be doing next? Because I'm sure you're super busy with lots of stuff, and obviously you've got fans that'll be watching this right now.
Yeah. So I don't know when this is going to come out, but on February 5th, the Porsche season starts, the Porsche Esports Supercup. So I'll be commentating on that. I've got tomorrow, which is, I don't know what the date is, tomorrow the 3rd or something. I record for BMW show. So that kind of stuff's ongoing. It lingers throughout their racing seasons. And then there's a very slim chance that I'll be at Katowice doing some stuff. But I'm waiting to finalize that too. So yeah, I mean, we're going to be, I don't know, you'll see me around. And then other than that, I'll just be, posting pictures of my dog on social media like always. And that's about it. So look, man, well, I hope, because I'm kind of out of the game. So I don't even know when we would be at an event together. But I might, out of like curiosity, because I gotta fly out to the States at some point. Ooh, yeah.
In the next few months. Now that all the restrictions have been lifted, I'm free again. So yes. I'm thinking maybe I can come up and check out one of these like racing events.
Yeah, you should. I mean, it's the middle of nowhere and like it's so grassroots, but fuck it. Come on up. We'll hang out. We'll have a time. Show you Halifax and around the area. Yeah,
that'd be good because I like learning about things I know nothing about.
And you can meet Jaden because she's actually a way better person, even though she's a dog. She's a way better person than me. She's way cooler than I am. So
it'd be good to hang out. So yeah, there you have it, guys. That of course is Sadokist. We've been talking about things, and I hope those things have been interesting. That is all from the Richard Lewis Show. I'll be back at another unspecified time with another unspecified guest. No clue who it'll be or when it'll be, but it will be awesome. So thanks for watching, and until that next episode, make sure you take care of yourself. Bye.